Cool, we're good to go. So today we're going to talk about routing, and it kind of feels like we've already done routing, right? So why are we here again? We did routing on the back end in our Express server. What are we doing now? The routing that we're going to be doing here is actually on the front end in the Angular application. So the way that you guys have been used to your apps working in Python and Java is that when you go to a new URL, you're given this whole new HTML page with all new content in it. But here we're working with what's called a single page application. Does anyone kind of know what that means? What does it mean if something is a single page application? That's good, yeah. So it's essentially we're being given one HTML file at the beginning of the whole process. So when we first load up this app, and then rather than going to these different routes and being given a whole new HTML file and CSS and JavaScript, we're really just getting new content in some fashion. So that could be like the app knows what to give us for a different route. Or it might be that when we go to a different route, we're going to have to go get some more data from our backend. So maybe if we go to a different route and we want to get a specific task, for instance, we may have to make a call to the backend to do that. Right? And so far what we've been doing when we create a new Angular app is that you guys are always saying yes every time it asks us if we're going to do routing. And but of course we haven't really even used it yet. It's just sort of been there in the background. We've been wondering, how is this routing going to work? And that's what we're going to be covering today. So when we go to a new route, again, we're not getting an entirely new HTML file. Our application is sort of injecting the new content of that new route onto the page for us. So it looks like we went to a different page, but the reality is a little bit different. Okay? Any questions about that? Single page applications, what the whole thing means? The speed of it tends to be a little bit quicker because we don't have that hard refresh that the browser does that we've been used to with the other stacks. So let's get our RESTful tasks going here. I'll go to my main file here. We'll go. Oh yes, of course. I always forget. And I can always count on you to remind me.
Yeah, in every video.
Need to put like a post-it on the computer or something. Okay, whoa. And then it always ends up getting too large. Is that large enough, or do I need it bigger than that?
That looks good.
That's good enough? Okay. All right, so let's get our nodemon going. Server.js. And then we'll jump into this other terminal where we can get the Angular app going. So I always have to go into my public directory. And then we'll go ng build -- watch. Okay. Is it because you're conflicting your API's routes with your actual front end by chance? Okay. Because let's talk about that real quick, because I think that's something that we were going to try to cover too. So inside of our server, let's take a quick look at this. So we're using some routes here down at the bottom. And we're also using this here. So on our main route, essentially, like if we're any request is going to run through all of these things. So it's going to run through all of our app.use directives here. So it's going to check to see, do we have that file somewhere? Okay. And if we go to the root route, it's naturally going to be looking for an index.html, and it would find it in here. That's what this express.static is doing for us. However, if we're trying to go to a /API route, we should ultimately get down here, and we'll be using the routes that we set up for the API. So that's why when we first started this process, I kind of made sure whoops, that was the wrong thing. So inside of our routes, you'll notice that all of our routes start with /API. And that was intentional because I don't want there to be a conflict between a route that I have on the front end versus a route that I have on the back end. And you guys will see this as you go on with your web development, that a lot of outside APIs that you may interact with might have something like this. So they'll have the site address followed by a /API. And sometimes there will even be a version attached to that too. So it might even be /v1 or v2 or whatever. Because as the APIs change, you may have code that was relying on the API being a certain way. So when they change to a different version, that v1 or v2 is letting you know this is the version you're using. So if you have to change your code, you can do it. So I suspect that's probably what's happening excuse me, with yours, is that you've got a route conflict, but we'll take a look at it. Man, excuse me. We'll take a look at it individually. So what we're going to try to do today is actually just create a separate route. Right now we have one route where we're kind of seeing all of our tasks, and I want to create a separate route where we're looking at an individual task. Does that sound pretty good to you guys? Yeah, sounds pretty good. So before we even get to that though, I want to finish something that we kind of didn't finish yesterday, and that was just in the app component part. When we add a new task, I wanted to do a this.tasks.push the response.task. Why are we doing that? I meant to do this in yesterday's, but it just kind of slipped my mind.
Are you pushing it into the task array?
Tasks array, yeah. So the reason why we're doing that is because we'd like this thing to show up on the page immediately. So after I submit this task, I don't want to have to hard refresh the page or click the Get Tasks button again to do that. I just want it to show up in the tasks array. In order to demonstrate this working the way that we want it to, I'm going to pull out, instead of doing the Get Tasks on a button click, let's just run that inside of our ng on init. So we'll just go this.get tasks, and I'll take that button out so that we just have them in the beginning. So inside of our app.component, let's get rid of the get tasks, wherever that was. Oh, here it is. Maybe I can comment it out. Okay, so let's go to the app and see if we're getting it. Okay, good. So now I'm just getting the tasks automatically without having to do a button click. That's what I wanted. So now if we add a new task, I'm going to do one other thing before we do that. I want to clear out the form too. And the reason why I want to do that is because if we leave the data that's already in the form, then it's going to kind of look like nothing happened, right? It's sort of like, oh, the form still looks the same way. So let's just go, we're going to reassign this.new task. And actually, I can just grab this right here. So if this worked successfully, let's just empty out all the inputs for our form. Okay, refresh it, and then we'll go practice deployment. This is hard. All right. Anybody have any questions about that part? So we're just doing two things. We're you notice our inputs got emptied out, which is kind of a nice, I guess, a better user experience. So it looked like something happened, and we added it to our array of tasks. So a little bit better than where we left it off yesterday. All right, now let's get back to what we were talking about, which is that today we want to actually create a new route. Let's look at the routing that exists currently. So if we go inside this little file here, this app-routing.module, this is what we have thus far. We've got our routes are just this empty array currently, right? But instead of doing that, I want to have couple different routes. Maybe we'll have a route for all tasks, just to show all tasks, and then we'll have a route to show an individual task. So let's create a couple of these routes. And the way that we're going to do it is we want to specify what the path is for that individual route, and then we also want to give it the component that we're going to that we want to render when we hit that route. So let's do something like, we'll say the path is going to be tasks, and then the component is going to be something that we haven't imported yet. So we'll just call it, I don't know, all tasks. And then we'll have this over here where our path is tasks, and then / some ID, component task. Do I have a task component? No, I don't. Okay. So you guys know why we're getting this red squiggly here? Yeah, not only have I not brought it in, but I also have not created those components at all. So how do we create a component again? NGGC, good. Let's open up another one. Okay, so we'll go back inside of our public directory, and then we'll go NGGC to create a component. So we're going to create an AllTasks component. Just call that AllTasks. Okay, there we got our new file here, and then we'll go NGGC task. Okay, so it created these files for us. It created the a single task, and then it also created the AllTasks component. Now let's import these guys up here so that we can actually use them. So we'll go import AllTasks. Oops. And then where are we going to find that? That's actually going to be, we're inside the routing module, so we need to go into AllTasks, and then we want to go to AllTasks component, right? But for some reason that does not seem to be exporting that, so let's see what it exports. Oh yeah, it's AllTasks component, my mistake. So it's not exporting all tasks, it's exporting AllTasks component. So we'll go like this, and then we'll add that there. Oops. Okay, so we're good to go there. And then I want to do the same thing with the other component that I've got. Import task component, like that. From, and then we'll go inside task component, like that. Okay, so now we got to change this guy. Okay, cool. So the way in which these things are actually going to get rendered are, we're going to look inside of our main app component.html here. You see this little router outlet thing here? So we've kind of been seeing this in our applications, but probably you were wondering, what's that for? Why is that even there? This is where we're actually going to render some routed components. So if we go to a specific route, it's going to be rendering that individual component inside where this little router outlet is. Okay. So what I want to do in order to make this fairly seamless is I want to take some of the logic that I had inside my app component, and I want to dump it into that AllTasks component so that we're not kind of duplicating our efforts here. So inside AllTasks component, let's copy, inside of our app component, let's copy some of the code from that. So let's see what we got. We've got most of this stuff. Okay. Let me just grab that.
Grab the whole thing and then delete
Yeah, we've got to be careful, but yeah, that's the general idea is I want to come in here, and I do need to change some things because we're no longer using app.component.html. We're going to be using AllTasks.component.html, and then I want to change this to tasks. Okay. Yeah, and then notice that we got this red squiggly on the HTTP service. Anybody know why? Yeah, the path has now changed. We're now kind of one level in, so we need to change this here accordingly. Okay. And then the other thing that we're going to want to do is swap out this HTML, because all it is right now is AllTasks works. So let's go back inside of our app component.html and grab this. Actually, without the router outlet. Pull all of that there. And really, this is probably all we'll leave for now. Okay, so in the AllTasks component, let's just replace that.
So you grab the HTML as well.
Yes, I grabbed the HTML, I grabbed the TS. I don't remember, I don't think I was using any CSS at all in the main app component, right? I'm just going to verify. Yeah, so that's totally empty, so I didn't really need to do anything there. And then in the individual task, let's just, well, it says task works, so that's probably fine for now. Now let's take a quick look here. If we were to go to all tasks. Interesting. Why do you guys think that's happening?
Have you still not yet specified that the route/tasks goes anywhere in Angular? Like Angular's still just looking at the slash.
Angular itself should be okay, and we'll kind of get into why this is happening in a second. But
You haven't closed off the routing on the back end.
yeah, exactly. What happened here? Does that not export that all of a sudden? AllTasks component? Oh yeah, it's app component now. Ooh, look. Okay. AllTasks component. All right. Kind of caught me off guard there for a second. Okay, so now we got no more red in here, but yeah, Rigel's right on point. What's happening right here is that we're passing through all of our routes in the Express app because we're doing like a hard page refresh. And what's happening is we don't have a route that handles /tasks in our backend currently. So what we need to do is we need to add something into the backend that will essentially say, if we haven't hit a route that we already know about, let's just forward it to our Angular app and have the Angular app handle all of that. Okay?
Why do you put the server.js?
Yes, yeah, we're going to be putting this in server.js. Basically, it will be a catch-all route. So if everything else fails, let's just send it right to our Angular app, and the Angular app, hopefully knows what to do, right? So let's go down into our server.js, and right now we've got all these routes here. So what we want to do is add this catch-all after, because we've already applied our API routes, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do app.all, and that means any method that we have, whether it be get, post, whatever. And then the path that we want is just going to be an asterisk, so that's, again, a catch-all, no matter what the path is. And then we're going to send a file. What file do you think we're going to send? Is that a file?
No, it's not.
What did you say? Well, we can't. That's not. No, we're not going to send the Angular router. It's not a bad idea, but no. What do you think we want to send back to the client? That's not going to be such a great user experience, right? The person's like, oh, cool, I got some JSON. I don't even know what that is. Let's send them, how about if we just send them the Angular HTML page? Make sense? Because Angular should know what to do with this route. So if we give them that index.html, Angular should be able to take it from there, right? So let's grab the dir name that we're currently in, and then let's add to that. We're going to go into public, and let's make sure we know where this is. It's going to be inside the public folder, and then not inside source, but it's going to be inside dist, and then inside public we have index.html. All right, so let's go public dist public index.html. Okay, now let's try refreshing. Oops. I don't know, something must have crashed with NodeMon. Let's try that. Oh yeah, totally. Oh, res is not defined. Whoa, I didn't even do it in a callback function, my mistake. So here, we obviously need our rec and our res. I'm just going to underscore rec because it doesn't matter. Res. And then we're going to do that. Should be good. Okay, we're back up and running. Cool. Okay, so here's what happened. Now that we are able to actually get the page to load, Angular knows that at this /tasks route, I want to see all my tasks. And then that shows what we already had initially in the app component. Of course, now I've moved it into the AllTasks component. Okay. The other thing that we can do inside of our routing is we can do a redirect to. So if we want somebody who hits a certain route to always go back to a different route, I can run a redirect. And let's try that out real quick. So, oops. Inside of our source, we'll go back to the app routing module. Here it is.
Like after a post.
No, not so much. Like after a post, we're gonna use a more programmatic way of doing it, and we can get into that briefly. But here, like let's just say I had a route that a lot of users maybe already know about. Okay, so let's say path users know about this, and then instead of rendering a component, what I want to do is just send them back to, say, AllTasks, because they weren't supposed to be there. I no longer want to have that route users know about this anymore. So let's say redirect to, and then I'm going to redirect them to all, or just tasks, I guess was our all tasks, right? Okay, so let's try to hit that route and see what happens. So users know about this. Notice how we just got redirected seamlessly right back to tasks. So it got me out of the route that I was in and shot me back to where I wanted to go.
And you had to put /tasks for the redirect and then just tasks for the path.
Correct. Yeah, this is really important when you're doing your routing. The initial part of the path should not have a slash, and if it does, I believe you'll run into some kind of issue there. So if I drop in this here, let's see what happens. Yeah, the whole thing blew up. So basically, it's saying path cannot start with a slash. So it'll explicitly give you that error. That is a great error, yeah.
Two slashes for tasks. Because it's like defined first there. You name it /tasks.
Rather than line 800.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of looking at it that way, but
Let's not do that.
just keep an eye on your console, and if you run into that problem, you'll know what it is because it was very explicit, and I like that. Yeah, fantastic for sure. The other thing that we can do is we can have a catch-all component in here for a page not found or something like that. So I can go in here and I could say another route might be a path of double asterisk, this means if all else fails, because Angular is going to basically route on a, it's going to check each route individually. So if we haven't gotten anything by this point, let's just render some page not found component. So let's just say page not found. Of course, that component doesn't yet exist, so what do we need to do? Make it. All right, ngGC, and then we'll say page not found. Okay, and then up here, I always need to import it as well. So we'll go import, oops, page not found. Oh, I always forget to put component. So we got, oops, page not found, and then page not found dot component. Let me change it down here. Component. Okay. So let's come up here and just go to some route that doesn't exist. All right. Does that make sense to everybody? All the other routes failed, and we ultimately got down to the bottom, which is just our page not found component. Okay. So the only other thing I wanted to show you guys is just how do we tap into, say, a route param. Like in this case, we have like a tasks ID that we want to go to an individual task, and then hopefully go and grab that from the back end, right?
Sorry, real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
That redirect, is that redirecting you to the roots.js/tasks?
Yeah, it's just so it's redirecting us to the route that starts on line 9, the top one here. So yeah, it would be the root of your app. Like if we had some more nesting in our routes or something like that, it would still go back to the the first /tasks. All right. Does that clarify it or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just wasn't sure. Okay, so let's really quickly just explore the task component to see how can we show an individual task. All right, so I'm gonna close all these files that we have here, and then let's just go into our task component. This guy here. Now, in order for us to tap into the routing params that we have there, we need to bring in some things from Angular. Okay, so let's bring in router params activated route Angular. It gets from router. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to inject some things in to this component to be able to actually listen or figure out what route we're on and what that routing param was. So inside of our constructor, let's inject some things. So we'll say private router, or we'll go like underscore router is going to be router that we took in there. Private activated route is going to be an instance of activated route, and then we got params too. Actually, we don't need to inject params. Okay, so what we want to do is inside of our ng on init, and this is when the component is ready to go. We want to basically figure out what is this route that we're on and what is the routing param that we got from it, because we need to know what is the task ID. Okay. So what we want to do is we'll go this dot underscore activated route. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. and then we're going to go params. Whoops. Dot subscribe. So we're trying to subscribe to the params. Okay, and notice that that's gonna give us back an observable, which will take in a or which will pass us a params object. So we can say params, which is of type params, which we again imported here from Angular. Yeah, and then inside here, let's just console log what the params were for now. So we'll just go console.log params. Okay. So let's go to our app and we'll just put in some param for a task ID, even though it doesn't exist right now. Tasks some ID here. Okay. So now we're getting this object that has all the different routing params that we're interested in. So the only one that we had in this case was just the task ID. Okay. So how do you think we would go about then getting the task once we know what the ID is? This should be a cinch, right?
Find by ID
Yeah, but what are we gonna use to do that though?
from our original routes.js. Yeah.
Our original routes.js,
Or
no, not from the routes. Where are we gonna go?
We created it in our components, yes, didn't we? Or in the service. We created
in the
There we go.
service, the service.
I heard the answer. So we need to use our service,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Right now, our service doesn't really have a get task by ID. At least I don't think it does. But
Should.
that's, yeah, it should, because we're going to need to do that for a single task. Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
We got this get task by ID. Okay. So let's just ultimately we're going to end up importing this service right into the component so that we can then go and get that thing by ID. So let's, inside of our task component, let's bring in our service. So HTTP service, and I'm going to get that from one level up HTTP service. Okay, and then I also need to inject that into the component just like we did with these guys. So we'll say private HTTP service. Okay. And then once I've figured out what my params are, actually I'm just going to set up like an empty task to begin with. So we'll just say task was null. And maybe do this just in case type. Forget that. All right, so task is null initially, okay? Because we don't yet know what it is. We have to go fetch it. So inside here, now that we have our params, let's just make a call to go get that task. Okay, so in the body of the function, let's use our this dot underscore HTTP, and then we're going to go get task. And then I'm getting a task from my params dot ID because that's what I called it in the routing module. Remember, we just called it ID.
Yes.
Okay, and then what do we have to do once we get that? It should be automatic. Got to subscribe to it. Yeah, because otherwise it's just kind of lost in the ether, and I have no access to it anymore. So subscribe, and then I've got my my response, which we usually have to say is any, something like that, right? And then assuming that we got a task back, let's just say this.task equals response.task.
You could console log response.task too.
Mm-hmm.
Check.
Yeah, of course. Console.log task. Okay. Whoops. Response.task. Okay. Let's do that. So probably we're going to get an error because we don't really know any of the IDs of the tasks right now. But let's just see. So if we go here, we got null back because, again, we were fetching a task that doesn't even exist. But instead of doing that, let's just do one small thing. So I'm going to make an adjustment to our all tasks page. We'll just have like a link next to each task, which will take us to that correct page. And then we'll see if our functionality works. All right, so inside all tasks, we'll go up to here. Where was it? Okay, here we are. So we've got a button that will show the task, but let's do another thing that's an actual link. So we'll do an A. The difference is here what we're going to do is instead of saying the href, you're going to go router link. And then since I'm binding this, I'm probably going to have to put square brackets around it. But basically what we want to do is we're gonna say what this link is just going to be a / tasks, and then we also need to give it the ID as well. So let's do. Can I just tack this on here? Task._ID, because that should be a JavaScript
Would it be no
item,
space
right?
after the plus?
I don't know. Now I'm a little unsure if that's gonna look right. Let's check.
Why are you using the plus?
Yeah, because I was just trying to append the task.id to that.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
And then just plus task ID.
That's a good idea. You move the quote right there. Yeah.
And then
Take
take it
away
out
the one.
at the end.
Yeah. That'll do it.
I don't feel like that will, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you use the mustache bracket?
Yeah, we're gonna have to use mustache, I think. Let's try that. Actually, yeah, maybe I could just do this. Let me try to do like a concatenation real quick. So let's do like this. Get out of that guy, and then do double again.
Well, why would the first part of the task / be in the mustaches?
Oh, you know what it's complaining about right now? It's actually that I haven't put anything inside my link.
Oh,
I didn't even realize that. Yeah, it won't let you complete the process if we're just doing that. Unexpected closing a tag may happen when the tag has already been closed by another tag. What? Huh. I don't know. Sorry. Dynamic router link Angular. Okay, so inside here we've got router link. Whoops. Item.router link. Oh, you may also go with the following. So oh, I see. So we can do like an inner quote on the part that we know is correct, like the task part, and then we could just tack on the other part inside the outer quote. Okay, so I guess that makes some sense. So if we go double here, single there, and then we tack on this task.id, come back over here, and then we'll get out of there. Whoops. Does that look good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's try that. Okay, cool. So let's see if we can hit this link and see what it will do. Awesome. So we actually were able to get back the task that we wanted, right? through our service. Now, I'm not going to go through the rest of the process, but essentially what you do inside your individual task component is you could do an ngIf and ask if that task was there yet, and if it wasn't, then you could basically like render nothing until the task comes back, something like that. But that's sort of how we would handle that. And there's one more thing here that I'll show you guys. You can also do active, router link active. I think that's what it is. So what router link active is it basically says if this particular link is active, like if I'm on the route that the link points to, you can apply a special class to it. So if I were to insert a class here, inside here, I don't know, we'll just call it active. And then inside my CSS, I could have something special for active, like font weight is bold or something like that. It would actually apply that if you were on that current route when you're viewing the page. Okay. So we won't see it because, again, those routes are linking to individual tasks right now, so that wouldn't really be a demonstration of that. Do you guys have any questions about what we covered today, the routing and how to get information from the params? That's really sort of the key element.
Can you maybe like run through really quickly all the things you built to adding the params? Because so many different pages and so many different lines.
Yeah, there were a lot of different things. So the main thing was inside of our routing module, we wanted to add the individual routes that we wanted. So we've got our paths, and then the individual components that those paths would then go to. And then the second thing that you need to do is that inside any component that's going to use some kind of param like this, like the task component, we need to subscribe to the, actually we didn't even use router itself. So you don't need this. What you need is the, oh shoot, you know what? I'm going to show you guys one more thing. Sorry. What we could use the router for is to navigate imperatively, meaning that in my code, if I want to send a person to a specific page, I could do something. Let's do it real quick. So instead of, or we'll do it in the AllTasks component. Instead of actually clicking a link, I'll just turn it into a button, and I'll show you guys how you can then send the person to that page. Does that sound good? Forgot to kind of do that. So inside of our AllTasks component, let's just create a button. All right, and we'll say go to task, and then we're going to have a click handler for that, and then we'll just say go to task, and then I'm going to pass it the task ID. All right. So we'll go task._ID. And then inside my task component, I have to have a function that will actually do this. So in order to be able to route somebody, whoops, I'm in the wrong component here. So inside of our AllTasks component, I need to actually bring in router. So I've got to go router from Angular router. Okay, and as always, we need to inject this thing in the constructor so that we have access to it. So I'm going to take in a private router, which is an instance of router. And then I'm going to have this little click handler here called go to task. And then what did we say we're going to take in from that? An ID. So in order to navigate, what I need to do is I need to say this dot router and then dot navigate. And then we have to pass it an array. And this is going to look kind of weird, but that's the way it is. We're going to navigate to tasks. And then I'm also going to pass it this, I can pass it an options object, which takes an ID. So actually, I don't really need that. I can just say ID is ID. Okay, oops. All right, so now let's go back to our page and just render or show all tasks real quick. All right, so now we have this new Go To Task button. Let's click it. Whoops. Yeah, it seems like that didn't quite work the way I was hoping it would. Let me just change something here. I'm just going to tack on the ID to the end of this guy. Okay. Page not found. Or oh, I didn't put a slash in there. My bad. Okay, we know page not found works. That's good. All right, so there we go. Okay, so that's how you would navigate someone. So for instance, like after I've created a new task or something, if I want to take them directly to that new task, I could have some logic like that where I just go this ._router.navigate to the route using the ID that I just got back from the database or backend, essentially. Okay, so that's it. I mean, you guys now know how to navigate through links, and then you also know how to navigate imperatively using this router.navigate function. Clarifications? Concerns?
Yeah, just because I know it was a thing, did you hit all of the things on your list of things to tell us today?
Good question. Now I gotta open it up. It's often hard to cover everything, especially in a decent amount of time. So lectures, we're on routing. Single page application, yes. RESTful tasks, yes. We displayed all tasks. Nav items, yeah, we sort of created that, right? Show what happens when you did a hard refresh on a non-root route. We did that. We did a catch-all. We created a route for not found. Yeah, I think we covered it. All right. Yes.
Dylan asked you to kind of go step by step through everything. The first thing you started showing us was that routes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go back to that page for a second?
Certainly.
There it is. Okay. Do those routes don't necessarily have to be the same routes you had in routes.js.
No, no, they definitely don't, because remember, this is our front-end routing. This is the routing that the user is going to see.
Okay.
The routing that's in routes.js is strictly your Express application. That's for your API. So that's just for serving up our data.
And would mostly be concerned with what we put into our service at that point, because the service is what's going to be talking.
The service is the one that's interacting with the routes.js on the back end. Correct. All right. And then again, we'll be reconvening in the afternoon if you guys want to go over the authors demo.